Okay. Is it working? It's working. Okay, we are recording. All right. Now I just have to get the screen back. We will get there. All right. So, not sure if everyone's, do you guys see just the screen or do you see the little menus of Zoom on top of it? I think it's just me that I'm seeing all this.
Right now, I just see the Philoli garden.
Okay,
So,
I've got all these little menus everywhere. So hold on a second, I have to move it so I can read. So this is an excerpt. I made a slide to talk to you about what's going on with Philoli. This would be their second year doing an orchid show. They did one last year and we put in a display, and it was before POE, and we kind of did it to also help promote POE. They also helped us promote POE with advertising to their membership and through their venue of their website. And they donated $1,500 to support the Orchid Doctor booth as well. So they've asked to have an ongoing co-promotion sponsorship effort. And part of that is to help them with this, putting in a period of the display. And then this year, they're also talking about doing a sale. So I'm going to just kind of read through this briefly. So it says, for a variety of reasons, we've invited Bonsai Society to stage, and now that's firmed up, it's in January. The second paragraph says, people are concerned about contact with others when setting up, maintaining, or taking down plant exhibits. So they're scheduling to set up and take down, so it's sort of before or after hours, which is sort of what they did anyway. But they're asking that we not be there during the time when the visitors are coming through to look at the plants, just to reduce the number of people there. But it did raise some concerns. I think Ron Norris, you had some concerns about security. So I'm following up with them about how they plan to staff that. And then the third thing, this third bullet was, or paragraph, was around the option to have a plant sale during that period. And they're open to it, and at least one of the other societies, the Santa Clara Valley Orchid Society, is doing their sale the last weekend of February on the 27th and 28th. So the question to the group is, how do people feel about that? I did approach some of the people that were involved in the sale we just did, like Tanya, amongst others, and there was interest, as well as folks, particularly Lynn and Ron, that helped with the display last year, and Bob Hamilton and John Leathers and Tom Pickford and Susan Anderson. A lot of you helped us with that display. So we would certainly welcome everybody, even more people, to help and coordinate to do that. If we do the sale part down here, they would charge us a $100 booth fee, and they'd want 10% of sales. What I don't know is if we do a pre-sale, if that's different than the sales, like if it's just the pickup part versus the live sales on site. So the pre-sales actually worked quite well. It was a little bit more work, but we sold a lot that way and knew what we had to bring.
Jeff, I think what they wanted to do was to be able to sell plants to their visitors. So, you know, the pre-sale would be good to most of the other orchid members, but they, I think, want to be able to sell their, 10%. I don't know, how much are we giving to our members? How much are the members getting?
Well,
as far as
we've been doing 75% and 25% to the society.
So, I mean, then you would have to lower something if you're going to give 10% to Philoli.
Right. I mean, I think we could probably just take it out of our portion, right? Because we're not paying any. I need to see how it all plays out, but it's. Faye and I haven't actually gone through all the details. She's the one doing a lot of the bookkeeping, the good thing is that the way it's done electronically on Square with the tax and everything, it was a lot easier than what Carol Zatowski had to deal with live at the events. So the good news is we got to practice in the last one in a smaller scale of how this works than what we do at POE. And then the other piece here is just that they have options for an indoor versus a outdoor sort of mixed space. They have sort of the cafe that can be opened up to the outside. So depending on weather and how everything else plays out, that they'll work on it. So bottom line is they're offering us this spot. I told them tentatively to hold it for us, and got some tentative agreement from a few folks that have helped before, and just wanted to open it up for a brief discussion or input, or to hear if anyone wants to help out with it. So I'll stop talking and unmute yourself and speak up if you have any thoughts, interest, if you want me to contact you, contact me, whatever.
This is Karen Olson. I have interest in helping out.
Great, thanks, Karen.
I may have some plants to sell too.
Okay, terrific.
Jeff, is Tanya. I think we could do a combo if we want to work hard. We could do a pre-sale and then drop off as a pickup place there, in addition to whoever wants to sell on site. So if possible, maybe we can do both.
Okay.
Hi, this is Heidi. I think I unmuted myself, and
I hear you.
so I think you can hear me. Yeah, if you want to call on me for anything you need for that Philoli sale, I'm happy to try to help. I came the other, I think it was 2 years, and was there. And if they don't want people there, that's fine too. But just let me know.
All right, thanks, Heidi.
So Jeff, the question I have is, if we have a pre-sale, are we still tied to having to give Philoli 10%? That's one thing. And the other thing is that how are we going to, this is just my thought about having to set up and make sure that people know that this has already been sold. Are we going to do it like we did at Shell Dance, which I thought worked fairly well? Nobody came into the area that was already the sold plants. I don't know if Philoli is going to want that 10% if we're going to sell plant, have a pre-sale.
Right. I have to. So whatever we do, they put together. It's sort of a contract agreement. So last time we have a template and we can work off of that, but it didn't have anything about sales. Although we did sell the book. We sold some books in their bookstore, I think. So it might have that clause. Anyway, I'll check it out. I have to follow up with them, but they're pretty responsive. Anyone else? All right. Well, I'm going to move to the other topic, but feel free to email me or contact me and let me know what you think, and we'll keep this moving. It's already November, so it seems far away, but it's not that far away. And then, let's see, the next topic is another slide. So this is the conservatory. So this was an excerpt from the last email I got. So there's the head of the nursery is Kristen Natoli, and she's the person I've dealt with when we have like donations. So every year we've donated money and or plants to the conservatory collection, and we get a letter back from them. And so I know her pretty well. She's very responsive. I had a meeting a week ago a Zoom meeting with their Sarah, their engagement manager, as well as a few other staff involved in their production, et cetera, and communications. And they want us to work together on some programming this year beyond just being at POE, which isn't happening this year. So I already mentioned on the first slide that they're talking about doing a live video program as well as recording it and having it sort of, I'm not sure exactly how they plan to use it after the live event, or if the live event is actually on February 13th or 14th. The 13th is a Saturday. So I volunteered to give the talk unless somebody else wants to do it. So because the timing is a little short. So they already have a topic. It's aphrodisiacs of the tropics, which is what they use every February. I proposed to do a 15-minute talk on orchid attraction or something like that, and just talk about the attractiveness of, you know, the diversity of orchids, the beauty, the visual color, the fragrances, like something very high level, because they already have experts talking about vanilla and pollination and some other things. But I have a call next week with them to iron some of this out. So if anyone wants to give a talk, we would, if you want to do it, you have to help me put it together, and then plan on February 9th, we would have to go down there after in the early evening to do a rehearsal. And then on February 13th is the actual, I think it's a live event or the recording date. Any questions? I'm supposed to give them the name of the speaker, a bio, and a topic by November 19th, which is not that far away. And then to give them any materials we would need, like a talk outline, photos or videos needed by January 8th. And I put some links down here of what their prior programs were from 2019, 18, and 17. Just you can see what they did, but those were more live events with chocolate tastings and a tour. So I'll stop talking and give you guys some time to ask questions or speak up.
Jeff, it's Kevin. I'm interested in giving a little talk. I'd be interested in helping you with that.
Okay. And that was, hold on, let me move this so I can see who's talking. All right. Kevin, wave at me, Kevin. There you are. Okay, got it. Cleaner. I should recognize, but I couldn't see faces while I was doing it. All right, so I'll follow up with you.
Cool.
Great. Anyone else interested in helping out with the conservatory? All right. Well, you can always follow up with me later. The other thing I didn't mention is there's more to come. So they actually want to, so I highlighted it in italics here near the top. It said, in addition, let's see, I'll be reaching out in the next week or so with a proposal to bring to your board for a live orchid display at the conservatory to coincide and support the program. Now, I told them that we had this competing program going on with a display down at Filoli at the same time, and didn't think that we would likely have enough plants to be able to put another display on there. You know, plus they have their own, they actually have tons of orchids there. So I'm not sure they actually need us. And I'm not sure where we would put our display because they don't want it inside with their stuff. So I'm going to learn more about what they're thinking. Food for thought. And Eric already volunteered to kind of help with this as well. I was thinking that they don't really have any outside orchids, and I think one thing that might be interesting is to do like things you can grow outdoors in the Bay Area. So, and whether they would consider putting more of an outdoor or a plant wall or something outside that people can see as well as inside. So,
For example, like the reed stem epidendrums or not salvia. There are a couple of, because I've seen and the cymbidiums and types, those are that are grown out here regularly. There's several people who are in the neighborhood who have cymbidiums in their yard, you know, growing outdoors in the ground year round. And same with the reed stem epidendrums. They have a lot of them in planters and in large pots outside.
They do? No, you're
In,
saying
in my area right here in Bernal Heights.
right, but I don't think they have anything at the conservatory.
At the
outside.
conservatory, no, I haven't seen any neither.
So
They have a greenhouse full of cymbidiums. They rarely put them out though.
thanks, Paul. The other topic I brought up with them was, which I had talked to John Leathers about, was, so there used to be a director there years ago that put together really what's in the cloud forest. It was a Massavelia Dracula collection,
Yep.
right, that a lot of people donated to. And I talked to them about maybe doing something in honor of him. His name was like George Markopoulos,
Right.
right? So, and I don't know where he is. I don't know if I don't think he's passed away. I think he just moved away. So if anyone knows him or has interest in that, let me know. But that's down the road. That would take some months of planning. And they are still a bit leery of having volunteers. So all these organizations are opening up. They have social distancing of people, just like in the museums, but they don't want the liability of having volunteers interacting with other people. So I think they're still figuring it all out. Okay, good. So how are we doing on time? All right, sorry, it's a little after 7:30. I know I talked too much, but I'm trying to get through everything. So the last business item here is something that we actually started talking about over a year ago, was, you know, whether our bylaws needed to be amended to include allowing us to do things electronically and virtually. And then the pandemic kind of forced this on us. And I noticed a lot of other societies are doing something quite similar now. So the timing is such that they're amending their bylaws. So we've had a couple of discussions, and then this was what was actually posted in the newsletter that was sent around it was at the end of the newsletter. So I fit it all into one slide. Actually, there's two slides. So this slide shows the actual text that we're proposing to amend. The current bylaws are dated March 11th, 2012. And actually, Kay Klum, who's on, was the secretary that was involved in this and recorded it. She's an expert as well. I was proposing that if we go through to kind of ratify this, I think it would end up having the date of whatever date we actually ratify it. I don't know if it would be today or the board date, which would be November 9th. The things we're proposing to change are in the meeting section is to take, and throughout the document actually, is to broaden when it says mailing things to people, that it can be sent to them either physically or electronically. The quorums throughout make sense, except to me, I think there's a space where it talks about 50 members constituting a quorum. And just, I mean, we do have like close to 50, but I'm wondering whether we should consider making it a little easier to conduct business and having closer to 25. I don't know how big the membership was back when this was last done. So that was kind of an aside. Then the section 10 under meetings was new. So we added this whole paragraph, this whole section that says SFOS, the executive board and its committees may meet, vote electronically. A meeting's presiding officer decides whether and how to allow electronic participation, make motions, raise a point of order, vote consistent with the rules of and principles of parliamentary authority. If electronic participation is allowed, then the right to participate electronically extends equally to all members. In other words, we can't charge people to attend. We have to make it free and open, sort of like we're doing, within reason, right? I mean, we, just like getting to a live event, you still have to get there, right? If you're not there, we do our best to advertise it. So I think for this, we do every effort we can to make it accessible. And then down in the maintenance of records. There's an additional piece added that says that we may store written records electronically in lieu of doing so physically. And then the last slide on this, the second slide, actually is the section that talks about doing amendments to the bylaws. So this is the section in full. And I proposed also changing that instead of mailing, that it can the same language, send physically or electronically. The rest of it I left intact, and I think Kay was alluding to the fact that technically this was not exactly done this way, where we didn't have 15 members sign a proposal. It was brought up at the meeting again when all this happened, and I went ahead and just put it on the board agenda without it being brought by 15 members. So I did kind of shortcut that a bit, just to kind of get it moving. And that was 2 months ago, and then we met again last month to discuss it formally. So this says that in order for this to pass, and this is section 3, at the next regular monthly meeting of the Society, following the presentation of the proposed amendment, it shall be read prior to taking a vote thereon. The proposed amendment shall be adopted if approved by ballot, or if there is no objection by a show of hands by 2/3 of the members present and voting. So that's a little tricky, but it puts us to the test as to how we do that on Zoom. So, so you can unmute, right, we can wave. So there is a voting feature, but it's in webinars, and we don't pay for the webinar feature. So John and I kind of looked at this and felt that the best way to do it would actually, we could do a roll call where I actually go down individuals, or we could just have everyone unmute and speak up if they object. But
Point of information.
Yeah.
Have we made a motion to accept these as read?
No,
Or I don't think we've made an motion, and then, you know, discussion
we
should
haven't.
follow.
I believe the
You
president
haven't
is
made
presenting
a
this to the
proposal.
membership.
Right. I was trying to read through all the slide stuff first, and then we did discuss it, and some folks attended the second board meeting that we just had, where we reworked the language before we put it into the newsletter to send out to everyone. So Claire, I see Claire wants to chat, and I asked her to kind of speak a little bit.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. One of the primary issues here is that besides the COVID issue that has made almost every organization meeting electronically instead of in person, there's a need for bylaws to be updated to accommodate that. And also, especially organizations like ours that are incorporated and that we have a 501c status, our bylaws must be updated to incorporate that. And the latest thing is the newest 12th edition of Robert's Rules that has come out in September, and it requires that all meetings that are held electronically, that must be part of the bylaws, or any electronic meeting is not considered valid. So a lot of organizations are using language. They're going forward and updating their bylaws now to comply with the latest Robert's Rules. And in most of our bylaws, whether it's this organization or others, most of them refer to the fact that the latest edition of Robert's Rules governs anything that hasn't been covered specifically in their bylaws. But Roberts is very, the group that put together this 12th edition, they are very adamant about the fact that there must be specific language in the bylaws in order for any and all meetings, and that includes the committee meetings, to be valid, to have that language. And what I will add, Jeff, is you can either take a poll, and I think we can do that on Zoom without
the webinar. I know that for one of my organizations, we don't pay for the webinar, but we've been able to take a vote. So it might be just a matter of checking some of the Zoom workshops and see what our options are. But if our bylaws specify that we have to take a vote by ballot, then we have to figure out how to do that. And I think that there is a way in Zoom without doing the webinar that will allow you to do that. We can work on that. But in order to comply with the latest Robert's rules and in order to validate the meetings that we have had since what, since February or March, as well as the meetings that are ongoing now and any other committee meetings, we need to have language that specifies that all of the aspects of an in-person meeting must be granted through the language in the bylaws, so that things like point of order, point of information, the opportunity to make motions, to present amendments, to do all of that, any of the regular business that would be handled during a meeting where all of us are sitting in the same room, all of that must be available online. So we have to be able to see each other, hear each other, speak to each other, and have that same experience electronically. The one thing I noticed we didn't do, but I think it was in the proposed language that I had put forward, was to allow meetings to be hybrids, so that when we return to meeting in person, that there may be an opportunity for others to attend electronically who might not be willing to travel or necessarily interested in a meeting or feeling that they are not yet ready to participate in person. And so the language that says the chair may determine how the meetings are held electronically may be the language that gives the chair the opportunity to have hybrid meetings, because you may want to consider that, so that a meeting isn't just electronic or just in person, but people can still participate fully either way. And then you can have someone who will monitor the electronic portion of the meeting so everybody participates. But this is to come into compliance with the latest Roberts and to bring our bylaws up to date. And while the Secretary of State is not saying to member organizations, you must, you must, you must, the reality is that if someone checks your bylaws and discovers that you haven't complied with that, or you haven't put in the language that allows for that, there could be some concern down the road.
Yeah.
And that's what we have to watch for. So this language is essential, and it is critical. And I'll let you guys duke it out about the quorum. I think in view of what we're dealing with for the last 10 months or 9 months, I think it is prudent to reconsider the quorum level as something lower than 50, and your 25 seems quite reasonable, and that's all I have to say about that. So any questions?
Well, I do not about what you said, but I'm wondering whether you've accomplished step one, which is for someone to write out a proposal and get 15 members in good standing to sign off on it.
Oh, the other thing I will add, Kay, just as an aside, every time you change your bylaws, you list when those bylaws were changed. So you should have a series of dates that would indicate when the bylaws are finally passed. So if you've amended them in the past several times, you should have those dates listed. But your question is a good one, Kay, about are we in compliance with the bylaws in terms of this? It's a change that is required, and I guess my question would be, would it need to come forward in that format, given the fact that the requirement has to do with bringing our bylaws current based on the latest Roberts rules, and it's not a proposal that's being suggested because someone found some other change and wanted to put it forward, if I might sort of put it casually that way. Or if it's easy enough to come up with, since we're stuck electronically meeting, is it practical and reasonable to expect that we would have a petition signed by 15 members that would come forward? I don't know if that's reasonable or.
Well, you can do DocuSign.
Yeah, I'm doing all I can do. So I feel like I know it wasn't to the letter, but I mean, I do feel like at this point we could actually you can raise your or lower your hand apparently if you hover over the participants area. Chani was pointing this out. A few people have their hands raised. I think Carolyn and Susan, right?
If you click on participants, you will have an option to raise your hand. Go slower, go faster to do that, so that Jeff, you can see the whole list when you look at participants and know whose hands are up. There's quite a few.
Great. So if folks would just do that first, and that works, Judy.
I see Carolyn, and I see quite a few hands.
Yeah.
Ron,
What are the
Susan,
hands for?
Tanya, everybody's got their hands. A lot of people
They're
have their hands.
basically voting for I think.
Raise hand.
You can raise hand, but also right next to it is a yes, no button. So you can click
Right.
yes.
Oh, okay. I'm learning something new. So that's,
Yeah, we all are.
If you click on
I don't have it. I can't
you'll
find
see
those
those
things.
options, and you can take a vote that way also, unless someone insists on a secret ballot. Then you have to deal with that differently. So
Yeah, there's that. I don't see how you can proceed without doing step one. You're doing this to be in compliance, and you're doing it in a way that isn't in compliance. It doesn't make sense to me.
well, the meeting isn't in compliance, quite bluntly,
Yeah, there's
without the
that too.
language. So one might argue that if the board is bringing this forward, how many people are on the board, Jeff?
7, 8.
Yeah, it's not 15.
Okay, so you're halfway there. All
Yeah,
you would have to do is get another, reach 15 by, asking for those who wish to be considered as signing on to the petition, and I'll volunteer. I'm one more.
Me.
Okay. Does anyone object to this? Let me ask that.
No
I do. I don't
objection.
think it's valid.
No, I don't object.
I don't object.
Like Kay is the
But
only.
who does? Someone does. Kay, you said you object to doing it because you don't
Yeah,
think
I don't.
it's needed.
I don't think it's valid.
Oh, because you don't think it's valid. But do you think
Yeah.
it's needed or no?
Well, I don't, but I don't mind having it done.
Okay. Anyone else have a concern or a problem with us working through this? I can see the majority of people have their hands up or a yes button clicked. The check.
If we can add sufficient names to your list to come up with at least 15, then I would say that you've complied.
Okay, I don't understand either. You're having 15 people sign this?
To
that
propose
correct?
to the board that the changes be made.
So technically, we were supposed to have 15 members propose this to the board before we took it as a business item.
So it does not something that 15 people have to sign?
In theory, yes, but I went ahead and just put it on the board agenda because it was raised a year ago, and we tabled it, and then it was raised again 2 or 3 months ago.
And it comes from the board. So one assumes that if the board presents it, that all members of the board are signing on and requesting the amendments.
If you need it for your records, why don't you simply have 15 people sign it?
We can do that. We can definitely.
I mean, you could sign it in counterparts and send it out to 15 people, have them sign it and photograph it and text it back to you. And you'd have a signed copy from 15 people.
There you go.
That'd be easy.
Or you could pick another 8 people from our meeting tonight and we sign on, and Jeff can take it as a virtual signing. Yes.
Or you don't. What kind of record do you have of that?
Well,
that is the record.
Can you
Actually,
use this screen, do a screenshot of everybody with their hands up against their name, and that's your documentation?
You don't need it because you have minutes of this meeting, and
Yes,
that
we're
is your
recording.
documentation.
No, minutes aren't taken at these meetings.
Recordings are.
yeah,
Yes.
recording. I've been recording the whole thing is being recorded,
Yeah.
and I'm
Right.
taking screenshots too. So
And if
Okay, so
you,
there's a record that way then.
yeah.
and if individuals say, yes, sign me on, and it's part of this meeting, then your name is there.
Right, 8 people clicking the yes button.
All right.
Yes.
Yes, sign me on, Kevin Fleenor.
2.
All right, my other quibble here is, do you have a quorum present of members in good standing? You can't take a vote without that.
We have more members here than we've ever had in the last year at the in-person meetings.
That wasn't the question.
Let's see.
Members do we have?
There's 47 people on the call.
Okay, if it's necessary to get 50, we're toast because we haven't had 50 people in a meeting in years.
Yeah, I know. That's why I thought the whole thing was a catch-22.
Yeah, well, I think we're going to have to kind of pay fast and loose with that with 47 people because
we're doing this to be in
getting 50
compliance
anymore.
in case there's a problem.
Well, if you keep, as long as people keep bringing up these points to prevent us to get into compliance, we won't get there. If you go forward with this, and you can do this in several meetings to come up with your numbers, and if there's no objection, you can get to the amendment you need to get to. But as long as we have people objecting, we are prevented from moving forward, just to get a perspective.
All right. Well, to me, it looks like we definitely meet I had just put up the screenshot. For this, it says that 2/3 of the members present are needed by a show of hands. And I think the spirit of that is that we actually have well over 2/3 of the people with yeses and hands up and verbally able to speak up. So I think it's well documented. So I'll follow up afterwards at the next board meeting, which is next Monday, and we'll try to sort this out the best we can. I'm no parliamentarian, and so we're a little rough compared to the way things used to be done.
Do you have any other operating rules, Jeff, that you use for meetings? Do you have a set of operating rules?
I mean, we follow the agenda. I put out the agenda and we follow the agenda.
No, but you don't have a written set of operating rules separate from the bylaws, correct?
No.
Okay, because if you did, we could suspend those and move forward, because we can't technically suspend the bylaws.
No.
But it seems to me that there is a strong support to get us into compliance, and we should make every effort. We could read this at the next meeting, and if you let the members know that it's really very important to make sure that we have a quorum, and urge everyone to sign on at least for some part of the meeting, so we can reach that threshold that we continue to be challenged for. If we weren't challenged for it, we could go forward, but we are, so we have to deal with it.
Thank you. All right. So I appreciate everyone bearing with this. I know it's 8 o'clock and people want to see orchids. So, and hear John's talk. So first, I think is show and tell. So Lynn.
Let's see if I can do this a little more smoothly this time.
All right. And
Have you given me the share screen option yet, Jeff? I don't see it.
I made you co-host, so you should be able to do it.
Really? Okay.
you share screen instead? Since she knows how to do that.
Well, no, I think it's okay.
I don't see any option here to share screen.
Does it matter that her video is turned off?
I have no idea.
Can you hear me?
I hear you.
Yeah.
I don't see you though. So.
Phil brings up a good point. Maybe that video is related because she can't share a screen if she's not open to video.
Yeah, I just turned my video off and my share screen did not go away.
I don't know exactly what your screen looks like, so I don't know how to help you, Lynn. There you go. I see something.
What do you see?
I see your name.
You see what?
Your name.
Your name.
Oh, that hasn't changed.
All right. No.
Well, hang on a second. Let me try really quick to see if it works from this side. Blink, blink.
Yep. Bill did it. All right. Bill's doing his show and tell, I guess.
Okay. Why don't I do those while she figures that out? So let's
All
do
right.
it again. So here's Chen's Ruby. So Chen's Ruby, Cymbidium smells wonderful. Encephalium by Golden Elf hybrid. And boy, does that put up spikes. This one actually got bigger. This is Lulu by Summer Spot. And 3 days later, the flower was even bigger. Spot stayed the same, but it was bigger. And it has that Walkeriana lip growing on a slab in the greenhouse. And this is Mini Purple, which everybody's seen, variety Leah. And it is blooming up a storm, and the snails are eating them as fast as they open.
Wow.
But it's pretty.
All right.
Okay, Lynn, you caught up? Give me a gap.
Lynn, I think if you move your cursor towards the edge of the screen, it should pop up something to allow you to share screen. Or
Yeah, it's not, but my husband, my technical expert, is just arriving on the scene here.
little blue lights.
Okay, so let's
Tech support on the
escape, share screen. Oh,
There's your screen. Okay.
screen.
Screen two.
Okay. And put this.
We're not going to lose our speaker here, are we?
What do you see?
I see him looking and grinning. It's like, you're not going to go away, are you?
No. All we see is your name, Lynn.
I'm sorry?
All we see is your name. So is your video on?
Mm-hmm.
Nope.
Well, even
there you go.
That's it. All right.
Halfway there.
Screen two.
Okay.
Here you go. We see your screen. We see Zoom.
Yes. We see your Zoom page being shared. Yay.
Was that Kay's cat?
Yeah, I'm muting. Oh, I lost the mute. There it
We
goes.
got it. Go. You're
What do
on.
you see? SFOS show and tell?
Yes.
All righty, here we go. Thank you. Okay, so we have orchid photos from 23 members tonight. So we'll get started. The order in which they're shown is the order in which I received them. So there's no preference here. And I just want to request that when you send me photos, please remember to send me the plant name too. Thanks. So the first we see is, we'll start off with Heidi Arno's lovely little compact plant with a very big name. It's an unregistered hybrid of BLC Carolina Orange Door by LC Tropical Aurora. And Heidi acquired this plant from Tiny Jungle with her September raffle ticket. One of the benefits of being a member. Was only in her home about 2 weeks before the flower buds burst forth, and now both flowers are open, and it's lovely as a concolor appearance to it. Next, we have Ron Norris showing us his Renate Butterfly Beach, which is a primary hybrid of Renanthera citrina by Vanda suavis. He grows this in his unheated greenhouse, and I really love the pale yellow overlaid with darker yellow polka dots. The flowers are nicely spaced on the efflorescences, This hybrid was just registered by Santa Barbara Orchid Estate 2016, and it's received just one AOS award with fewer flowers than Ron's plant. So I think he'll be heading to the judging table with this soon. Next, we see Ron's Dendrobium Inobi Purple Splash. He grows this on a windowsill. So attention windowsill growers, it has a lot of flowers on a small plant. Its parents are two of the Australian butterfly orchids, Bigibbum and Dendrobium phalaenopsis. So it needs warmer temps to grow successfully, much less water in the winter. If you're looking for one of these, I've seen it on H&R Orchids, Roy Tokunaga's website sale list. It's a great windowsill plant.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but my screen is blank. I'm not seeing pictures.
Is anybody else?
I see it. Yeah.
We see it.
Kay, are you on a phone or on a PC?
I'm on an iPad. I clicked on share screen for a minute and it came on, but just for a second.
Right. Share screen is how you share your screen to somebody else, not the other way around.
So click stop share, okay?
All right, now I've got it. I'm sorry. I just.
Good, no problem. So next we have Ron Norris's Burragera Sunkissed Buttercup. He grows this outside in San Francisco and is obviously happy there as it has 4 spikes. It's really nicely grown. The protuberances on the lip, which you can see here, are meant to attract a pollinator. Those are very interesting. Susan Anderson shows us her Cattleya dormaniana. It's a lovely little Brazilian species, which is only found in a small area east of Rio de Janeiro, in one of the wettest habitats in Brazil, up to only about 3,200 feet. So that's a clue about how it wants to be grown. It has heavy fog year round. So this is an orchid which wants lots of humidity, does not like to dry out. And the contrast of the bronze petals and sepals with the magenta lip is very striking. Susan's Cattleya Takaki Snowy is a complex hybrid and a longtime favorite with very showy white flowers and a big ruffled lip. The shape is lovely. I think I bought one of these from Deborah Atwood years ago, and I don't think it's in my collection anymore, sadly. Susan's BLC Memoria Anna Balmores is also a complex hybrid, and Convex, the Grex Convex, is a highly awarded clone. The flowers are 5 to 6 inches across with 2 or 3 flowers on an inflorescence. So it's really showy, and the contrast of the yellow and the deep fuchsia in the lip are really showstoppers. Susan has grown this Ornithophora radicans into a fabulous specimen-sized plant with hundreds of inflorescences and thousands of blooms. Everybody say wow.
Wow.
It's a low elevation species from Brazil, and it's a monotypic genus, meaning it's the only one in the genus. The name Ornithophora means bird bearing, and if you look at the close-up of the flower, it'll tell you why. It looks like a little bird. Susan says she's had it for 3 years. The plant is mounted, not that we can see that. It's about 14 or 15 inches wide by about 18 or 20 inches from top to bottom, and it blooms this time every year like clockwork. It's beautiful, Susan. Tom Pickford shows us his Cattleya heathii. The II at the end of the name sounds like it's a species, but because it was registered in 1907, that was before hybrid names had to stop sounding like species names. So this is actually a primary hybrid of Lodogesii and Walkeriana. You see the Walkeriana here in the nose. Tom grows this in his cool greenhouse in Bolinas, where it's obviously thriving. He says if the flower looks huge, it's because it is huge. It's 12 centimeters wide, or almost 5 inches wide, and it's very fragrant. Tom also shows us another classic primary hybrid, Cattleya or Cattleyanthi. Portia. It's a cross-registered way back in 1897 of Cattleya Beringiana from Guatemala by Cat labiata, which is a species from Brazil. This is the cerulean form, which means blue in orchid speak, and it really is a beautiful shape of shade of blue lavender. It has 9 flowers on 1 inflorescence And it's a division that Tom got from the Napa Orchid Society. Karen, maybe from you. Jeff Harris shows us his cross of Miltonia benotii by Miltonia Mato Grosso. I looked up the hybrid, and this flower is much nicer than either of the parents. It has fuller petals and a much more pleasing ruffled lip than the parents do. I found that this hybrid was registered in 2016. Jeff, the hybrid name is Miltonia Juicy Fruit. Jeff grows it in the cool fog house under his deck with his pleurothalids. And the photo on the right, I think, is just a lovely little tableau, isn't it? Next, Jeff shows us Scaphocephalum swortifolium. This is an unusual little species from Ecuador, Peru, Colombia, where it's found in really extremely wet cloud forests. And Jeff grows it in his cool pleurothallid fog house. It's unusual in that it blooms successively from the same inflorescence, as you can see on this right-hand photo. It just keeps blooming on down the inflorescence. And the plant shows that the plant here, you can see by the leaves, is closely related to Masdevallia. The flower is about 3 inches wide. And I especially love this one in the middle, which makes me think of leapfrog. Jeff got this from Dennis Olivas at Orchids in the Park in 2018. And Jeff shows us this Lepanthopsis. He doesn't have a specific species name. It came from the Tarzan group in Florida, labeled as Lepanthopsis species, Ecuador. The flowers are only 1 millimeter or 2 big, fruit fly sized, as Jeff says, with this creamy green coloration on the petals and the dark reddish brown lip. Jeff says it's very translucent and crystalline looking in the sun, although that's not captured in the photo. He thinks it may be Lepanthes floropecten. If anybody can confirm that, please let Jeff know. And Dave Hermeyer shows us, excuse me, this gorgeous Laelia finkeniana. This is a primary hybrid of Laelia anceps by Laelia albida. Both parents are Mexican Laelias, which can be grown outdoors in the Bay Area. So I'm guessing that Dave grows this outdoors where it's very happy. This clone Kennedy, the name Kennedy here, was the first award to Laelia finkeniana back in 1977. It's still the loveliest of all the awarded flowers that I've seen. The flowers are about 2.5 inches wide. Dave Hermeyer shows us his Ludesia discolor. This is one of the jewel orchids, which are grown for their foliage more than for their flowers. Oh, this one is starting to bud right here in the center. The striking contrasting colors of the leaves with the white edge, that's really what this orchid is all about. It's a terrestrial orchid from Southeast Asia, and it needs shady, humid conditions with an even watering schedule. In other words, don't let it go bone dry and then don't soak it. You want to keep it evenly moist. So it's a good windowsill candidate if you can provide the humidity. With too much light, the leaves turn reddish and are nowhere near as beautiful as Dave's are here. This is Dave's Phalaenopsis lindenii. This is a species endemic to or only found in nature in the Philippines. Eric Christensen in his monograph wrote, and I'm quoting this is perhaps the most charming species in the genus, combining miniature plant size with richly marbled leaves and flowers with peppermint candy striped lips. Dave is growing it beautifully. It's mounted, obviously. My experience is it needs relatively cool temperatures to flourish and to flower, and considerably less water in the winter. Dave, I assume you're growing this outdoors? Okay, Renate Johnson shows us her beautiful BLC Memoria Lancerpiece Smith. This is a complex hybrid made by Frank Fordyce, whom we all knew, in 1998. It's a hybrid of BLC Maccombs by BLC Golden Zell. The parentage is nearly 1/3 Dowiana, which we can see in this amazing, spectacular lip with the golden striations as typical of Dowiana, and the elaborate rufflings. This is really lovely, Renata. Renata shows us a hybrid of Brassavola amazonica, which has been renamed Brassavola martiana. I don't know why. And the Brassavola is crossed with Cattleya harrisonii. I couldn't find any registration on this hybrid, but it's very lovely. And obviously it's a nice compact growing plant. Renata's Paphiopedilum Henrietta Fujiwara is a primary hybrid of Primulinum by Heinaldianum from Sumatra and the Philippines, respectively. So it needs fairly warm temperatures. It's a successive bloomer, so you see it's blooming one after the other. That's always satisfying, and Renata's plant is very nicely grown with 2 spikes. Stuart Menaker shows us his Phaltetraspis, which is a species from Sumatra and 2 islands in the Indian Ocean. I love this species because the 2-inch flowers are always a surprise. They can have random red bars like you see here on Stuart's photo. And the same inflorescence can have flowers with no bars, or with spots, or with flowers that are solid red and solid white petals and sepals, like the photos you see over here on the right. The one on the top is my photo, one of my plants. And the one on the bottom is Orchid Whiz. That can all happen on one inflorescence. The flowers are fragrant. This is also a good windowsill grower for fairly warm conditions with medium light. Stuart's Phalaenopsis deliciosa, subspecies hookeriana, is an unusual color form of this miniature species. It's from Southeast Asia. The type form of it is white and pale pink, so this is really unusual.
Barely one.
Stuart says the flower is about
But I thought Obama helped them with their car business, right? Yeah.
Somebody needs to mute, please.
Exactly. And now they're going for the other guy?
Renata.
Somebody needs to mute, please. We're hearing your political discussion. It says this flower is about 1 centimeter in diameter, or about 1/2 inch, and there can be many very fragrant flowers on branching inflorescences on mature plants. So it's found at elevations below 600 meters. So that means it's a warm to hot growing Phalaenopsis, and it's very cute. Stuart also shows us another lovely phal species, Phalaenopsis hieroglyphica. And the markings on the flowers give us a good clue as to why it's called hieroglyphica. It's a warm grower endemic to the Philippines. This is one where you do not want to remove the inflorescence after the flowers fall off, because the inflorescence, as long as it stays green, can flower year after year. Stuart's is a beautifully grown plant, and these flowers are fragrant also, I believe. Excuse me. Stuart shows us this charming little Angraecum didieri from the rainforests of Madagascar, where it grows with just medium light levels, cool, relatively dry winters. The flower is 2 to 2.5 inches with a 6-inch spur. This is the spur or nectary going down here on a very miniature plant. The flower is fragrant at night, so it attracts the moth which pollinates it at night. And I can always recognize didieri because it has these white, warty looking roots. It can bloom 2 or 3 times a year. Roberta Fox shows us this Vandopyrea little one, which she grows outdoors in Costa Mesa. And this is a great story. She describes how it has been the victim of the naming wars. So one parent is Hygrochilus parishii, which was Vandopsis parishii when the genus cross was named. And now it's been changed to Phalaenopsis hygrochila. The other parent was Sederia japonica. That's also now Phalaenopsis japonica. So now this plant has been semantically modified to Phalaenopsis little one. And I think that that just doesn't really begin to reveal this plant's complex heritage. It's really charming. Roberta says it's very fragrant also. Next, Roberta has done a great job of showing us her Dendrochilum kutzii, a species endemic to the Philippines, which was first described about 20 years ago. It has large flowers for the genus Dendrochilum, with these intriguing kind of curly petals. She grows it outdoors in Costa Mesa in about a 4.5-inch pot. So it's a relatively small plant with beautifully arching inflorescences. There's one unopened inflorescence right here, which shows why the immature inflorescence has been described as looking like a rattlesnake tail. Ew. Roberta shows us her Zoetrophion alvaroi, which she's growing in a 3-inch pot in her greenhouse, as it's found as an epiphyte at low elevations in Colombia and Ecuador, so it requires warmer temperatures in cultivation. This is as open as the flowers get. They don't get any further open than this, so the tiny pollinator has to squeeze inside to do its job. Back to the top of the alphabet, to the A's, Angraecum, Germanii from Roberta. This is a species endemic to Madagascar. It's a cool-growing monopodial epiphyte. The inflorescence carries a single jasmine-scented, long-lasting, very waxy flower. And the arching petals and sepals are very narrow and look like tails surrounding the non-racupinate or upside-down lip, which bears a 5-inch spur. The spur, I think, is this. Oops, sorry. Let me go back. The spur is this part right here. It's about 5 inches. Roberta grows it outside. It rambles way outside its 4-inch basket. She gives it plenty of water to keep the aerial roots happy. Next, from Tanya Lamb, we have Silogene usitana, which was named after the man who collected it. It's found only on the Mindanao Island in the Philippines at elevations around 800 meters. It's a small to medium-sized, warm to hot-growing epiphyte or lithophyte. It can make as many as 20 flowers on a zigzagging inflorescence, but only one flower at a time. So this one will fall off, one will come off on another side, then back over here, and they zigzag down the inflorescence. Excuse me. Cynthia Hill received several quality and culture awards on her usitana, and it's a really striking, with this chocolate brown lip with the serrated edges and these raised keels. It's beautiful in person. Tanya shows us Vanda Denver Diva Nina, which is a very complex hybrid, but over 50% of the parentage is Vanda sanderiana, which gives this flower its very round, full shape. It comes from the sanderiana parentage. It needs bright light to flower this as well as she is. It's received only one AOS award, so it's a good candidate for judging. And I love the raspberry color with the beautiful spots and tessellations. This is Tanya's Arachnis maggioi. Arachnis is a small genus from Southeast Asia, and all of the species in this genus have a mobile lip which is hinged at the base. Maggioi is a primary hybrid of Arachnis hookeriana and floari, meaning the air flower. They need very bright light to flower and high humidity, and because they tend to ramble, they need a lot of space. So this is not for the windowsill grower. Take a sip of water, excuse me. Tanya shows us Cattleya maxima, a cross of 2 clones of Cattleya maxima, Alexandra by Hector. And the result is this lovely slate blue color. Maximas are characterized by the yellow stripe down the center of the lip with purple or violet veins on either side of it. It's the largest of the unifoliate Cattleyas, especially the low elevation plants from Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru. The flowers are fragrant, and they're up to about 5 inches across. This is beautiful. Excuse me, Ernie Cattler, who joined us tonight, shows us Angraecum longicalcar. Longicalcar means it's the long spurred Angraecum. This is the long spur, and he tells us this story. He purchased this plant in 1986 from Fred Hillerman of the Angraecum house in Grass Valley. It's from Madagascar, and it was an 8-inch division of a plant collected at 5,000 feet. It now has a 48-inch leaf span and multiple leads. And the flowers have a 12 to 15-inch nectary, which is here. So it requires a moth with at least a 12-inch proboscis. The roots have attached itself to Ernie's greenhouse wall, so we can never bring it in for show and tell. So this is another benefit of virtual meetings, being able to see Ernie's plant that can't leave the greenhouse. Fred Hillerman, by the way, sadly passed away this last March at the age of 90. Judy Carney shows us this Oncidium, also known as Gomza verrucosum, a lovely little species from Brazil, Bolivia, and Paraguay. The flowers are about 1.5 inches wide, and this variety is a very dark form with very beautiful contrast between the yellow and the chocolate brown. Look closely and you can see why Oncidiums are sometimes called dancing ladies. You can see the lady with her head, her arms, and her big full skirt. It looks like Judy's flowers are floating up here in the air in her intermediate greenhouse, but a closer look shows that there's actually a stem or an inflorescence rising vertically from the bench down below. Judy has had this Laelia spectabile since 2009. This is a Brazilian species, is often cited as a synonym for Laelia pumila, but some of the things I read say there are minor differences in the lip morphology. So we'll wait and see on that. Excuse me, it needs intermediate to cool temperatures, bright indirect light if you're going to bloom it well. The flowers are about 4 inches across, and as we can see, they're large in relation to the plant size. Judy got this plant from Tom Miranda at Redlands in 2009, so 10 years later, this is not a huge plant. A lot of roots on the plant. This Judy also shows us Dendrobium tobaense. Wow, this is a species from the montane forest in the Toba province of Sumatra. It's characterized by this red midlobe of the lip with warty protuberances on it and the elongated tongue shape. Tom Perliti won Best in Show in 2018 at POE with his tobaense, and it was also awarded an AM/AOS. No matter what Tom Perliti and Judy Carney say, this is a fussy dendrobium, and it's difficult to grow into flower as well as Judy has here. This is one of Judy's really spectacular specimen-sized plants. We should all stand up and applaud like we would in a regular meeting. The type species of Coleogenes samico was discovered in the Assam region of India in the 1850s, but it's also found in Bhutan, China, Thailand, and Vietnam. Each inflorescence carries several flowers about 2.5 inches wide. In the enlargement of one of the flowers over on the left, you can see how complicated and intricate the lip markings are to attract whatever its specific pollinator is. Judy's had this plant since 2014. And again, wow, Judy. Kay Klum shows us this Alisara Hilo Ablaze Hilo Gold, which has an AM from the AOS. The taxonomists have had fun with this one, and they now call it Gombrasotonia. At any rate, it's a complex hybrid with lovely fall colors of pumpkin to brown and a lovely arching inflorescence. Kay also shows us this Oberonia longissima. As you can see by the little 6-inch ruler she has over here on the left, this is a mini with a long terminal inflorescence. I read on J. Fowles' Internet Orchid Encyclopedia that Oberonia was named for Oberon, the fairy king, which is a reference to the insignificant little flowers. Kay got this from Cindy Hill via Ron Parsons, who said it is rare, and it's from the Philippines. Kay's Dendrobium licheniastrum is happily climbing all the way around his cork mount. It's a mini species from northeastern Australia, where they grow on trees and rocks in both open forests and dense rainforests from sea level to 2,000 feet. It's a very slow grower. I would bet Kay's had this for years and years, but once it's established, it can take a range of temperatures, probably preferring moderate light. Little tiny flower over here. Charming. Jan Anderson shows us this Epilalio Cattleya Don Herman, a complex hybrid. It's a large plant, and it's obviously likes the brightest light. It's up on the top of her greenhouse or her patio. Jan's plant has 2 branching inflorescences, a deep golden yellow with maroon spotting in the ruffled lip, and very pretty flowers. Jan also shows us a Cattleya from Aquahenera named Cattleya hybrida, which she figures means Aquahenera didn't know the parentage, but it's a striking flower with a very pretty large ruffled lip. Jan also shows us a zygopetalum. As the days get shorter and the nights get cooler, it's time for zygopetalums with their great purple and blue lips and their super fragrances that'll fill a room. Jan shows us Brasileia Cattleya Mahino Yahiro Ulii, which is a very complex cat hybrid with many AOS awards from Hawaii to Taiwan to Africa and also in Australia. The ruffling and the soft colors make me think it was once used as a corsage orchid, for those of us that remember corsages. Corey Majewski is a new SFOS member, and this is the first show and tell submission. Thank you for sending these photos, Corey. This is Dendrochilum longicornu, which is growing in an open top flower vase outdoors for raising the humidity. The name means long-horned, which refers to the mentum or the spur, which you can see, this is the mentum or the spur. Chris Mendy of Tiny Jungle received an AM on hers at POE in 2015. Really lovely white flower, about 1.5 inches with distinct orange keels inside the lip. Corey says her Pleurothallus costaricensis, you can guess where that is from, began blooming within a few weeks of being placed in this globe terrarium, which she purchased secondhand from a florist. This was meant to be a temporary home, but as you can see, it's a bit cramped, but it seems really happy in this orb, so she's going to leave it there. You can see the chain of creamy flowers, creamy yellow flowers inside the orb and spilling over the edge. Corey received this Cattleya intermedia variety Alba pine knot from Dave Hermeyer. It is Corey's first orchid obtained from a fellow SFOS member, and says it was so exciting to see her bloom very shortly after she received it. This is a Brazilian species and grows best in intermediate conditions with bright indirect light. That's very lovely. Rebecca Long shows us her Stenoglottis longifolia, or she says it might be Stenoglottis venus, which is a primary hybrid of longifolia and fimbriata. Either way, it's charming. The little South African terrestrial, and longifolia, at least, is found at elevations up to about 4,500 feet. It's deciduous, and once the foliage drops off, watering should be reduced to only enough to keep the tubers from becoming overly desiccated. It's a cool grower, can take temps into the 40s if it's not too wet. It needs dappled light, not too bright. And the little pink flowers are about 1/2 inch wide and about 1 inch long, with lots of darker pink polka dots on the fringe lip. Rebecca got this at the Napa Orchid Society show in 2017. Linda Dawson is a brand new SFOS member. She's on with us tonight. She joined in August, and this is her first show and tell showing. So welcome to Linda. This is a Cymbidium hybrid, has a lovely pendulous inflorescence with a nicely open-shaped lip, which contrasts to the creamy petals and sepals. Linda also shows us this Dendrobium kingianum, which is a great Bay Area outdoor orchid to grow alongside your Cymbidiums, protecting it from the weather. The blossoms on kingianums range from this lovely pink to white to purple, and the flowers on these Australian Dendrobiums last longer if you don't water them while the plant is blooming. But don't stop watering your other blooming orchids, just these Australian Dendrobiums. Linda's Oncidium, I'm thinking this is Oncidium Twinkle. This is a super windowsill orchid. It just blooms enthusiastically for a very long time. The flowers are tiny, they're adorable, and they're very, very fragrant. Linda stumped me on this one. I'm guessing it's a Dendrobium kingianum or a hybrid of kingianum, but the upright inflorescence here is puzzling for a kingianum. It's not usual for kingianum. The plant leaves do look like Dendrobium. Oops, 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 oops. Sorry, Linda, if you have the plant tags, please send me the names. Next, we have Chani. Chani Langland shows us her Barcaria butterflies, which is a primary hybrid of Barcaria whartoniana by Barcaria spectabilis. Chani is the resident expert on Barcarias, having recently completed a research presentation on the genus. She says this blooms right between the two bloom times of the two parents. Whartoniana blooms in the winter, spectabilis blooms in the summer. This blooms right in between. Barcarias are charming little genus of epiphytes from Mexico and Central America, which grow best mounted. Chani scolded me for growing one of mine in a pot and wondering why it was languishing. They're also deciduous, so they need a rest until they resume new growth in the spring. Chani shows us Phalaenopsis celebensis with flowers from two different plants. The two petals are held a little differently on each. The petal and lip markings are also a little different on each one. Phalaenopsis is a very small epiphyte endemic to Sulawesi, and these incurved petals are unique in the Phalaenopsis genus. You only see that in the celebensis. We can't see the leaves here, but they're a rich dark green and they're marbled with silver markings. So it's a pretty plant. Chani shows us 3 photos of Gongora attopurpurea. She says the flowers look like little dragons having a battle. This blooms several times each year. She got a division from Carol Zotowski for a big $7 at the 2018 POE show and says it's the best $7 plant she's ever gotten anywhere. Attopurpurea is a species found in Panama, Colombia, and Brazil, and it's a fairly warm grower. John Rushworth shows us this Phalaenopsis hybrid, which is really eye candy. It has 2 inflorescences with lots of flat white flowers with purple blotches. And John, we saw him earlier, he's our SFOS's wonderful IT and technical consultant, and I think we may be getting him hooked on orchids. Jennifer Poulakos, I hope I'm saying that right, Jennifer, shows us her Hariel odorata. This is a miniature plant with a large flower, endemic to Taiwan, where it grows on mossy branches. So we can see that Jennifer is growing it well mounted on a stick with sphagnum, there we are, with sphagnum pad to retain the moisture as it would do in nature. It grows best in medium shade. I believe this is now considered a synonym of Hariella retrocala. Jennifer also shows us her Laleocattleya CG Roebling Blue Magic, which is a primary hybrid of Gaskeliana by Purpurata. You can certainly see the Purpurata shape here. I really look forward to seeing these big, beautiful blooms in the late fall each year. The flowers are more than 7 inches across, and the slate blue color is very striking, very unique. The clone Blue Magic was first awarded by the American Orchid Society in 1984, so this is a longtime favorite. This is Jennifer's Paphiopedilum fanaticum crossed with Emersonii, which is an unregistered hybrid, and it's not been awarded by the AOS. Jennifer, you may want to consider taking it for judging at some point, particularly if you continue to get 2 or more inflorescences like you have here. So it's a really lovely path hybrid. John McCallen always shows us eye-popping frags, and here is his Phragmipedium bessii, which he says came from orchid zone breeding, and it's just hanging on after a move in a hot summer. The form and symmetry of this are really beautiful, and bessii is a cool-growing terrestrial or lithophyte, can grow on rocks found in the eastern slopes of the Andes in Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru. We'll hear lots more from John shortly about moving his collection, including this beauty. And next is John's Phragmipedium Jason Fisher, which he says is a triploid, or 3 sets of chromosomes rather than the usual 2. This generally means bigger, stronger plants and flowers, but it can also mean that triploids are sometimes sterile. I blew up part of the pouch and the staminode over here on the left. And I don't know if you can see it, but they're completely covered in fine hairs, probably to protect from some insect predator. Jeff, the other Jeff Harris, who spoke to us last month about growing to native conditions. Jeff Harris shows us his Cymbidium tracianum, which means that Cymbidium season is fast approaching. Tracianum is a species found in China, Thailand, and Myanmar up at 4,000 to 6,300 feet, which means it's a cool grower, and therefore it's a lovely addition to our outdoor collections here in the Bay Area. It needs strong air movement, so our bay breezes are perfect. Pierre Pujol, who spoke to us recently, has received the last 2 AOS awards on his Tracianums. One had 18 flowers on 1 inflorescence. These are great photos, Jeff. Jeff also shows us 3 color forms of Cattleya labiata from northeastern Brazil. Labiata is a type genus for the standard Cattleyas. It has many varieties and color forms, some of which we see here. Some of them have flatter flowers with fuller segments. These are fuller. This is more starry. But what they all have in common is being large, 7 or 8 inches, and showy, with elongated, ruffly lips, with a yellow-orange throat. And it's just great to see these 3 forms side by side. Jeff also shows us 2 color forms of Cattleya, formerly Laelia pumila. This is a dwarf, a low-growing epiphyte from central eastern Brazil, with flowers that are very large in relation to the plant size, as you can see over here on the left. The flowers are about 4 inches. The one on the left is the typical color form, and the one on the right is the cerulean or blue form. They're generally grown mounted or in baskets, so the roots can dry out well between watering. Intermediate conditions are probably ideal, given their origin and altitude of 2,000 to 4,000 feet. Jeff shows us 2 forms of Cattleya guttata. Guttata means spotted or speckled. So the one on the right is the typical form, and the one on the left is the unusual munda or semialba form. This is a coastal Brazilian species, generally found below 600 feet in elevation, along rivers and streams where it gets a lot of humidity. They do not thrive unless they're grown at very high light, and they need a distinct dry rest in the winter. The flowers are about 3 inches across, and it's typical to see them like this. They do not fully open. They're also fragrant. We're getting near the end. This is my Maxillaria grandiflora, which came from Ellen Koch almost a year ago, and it has bloomed 3 times since I've had it. That's one of the things to love about Maxillarias. They can put on a flush of flowers several times a year. Grandiflora, meaning big flowers, they're about 3 inches, is a species from Colombia, where it grows between 6,500 and 9,000 feet. So I grow it in my cool greenhouse, which is heated only to 43 degrees at night. So it could probably also grow outdoors in San Francisco. And this is my Dendrobium. There continues to be confusion about the species name, though they are perhaps synonymous. If it's Chapayense, it's said to be from northern Vietnam. If it's Gentianum, it's thought to be from Assam, India. And even J. Fal can't quite unravel this mystery. At any rate, the flowers are about 2.5 inches across. They're borne directly off of tall canes. They're very clear white with this luminous orange pink keel and veins on the lips. And now we'll close with our usual pet and orchid photo of the month. These two dreamers belong to Tom Pickford and his wife Doris. As Tom says, 20 pounds of cat in a 5-pound bowl. I'm sure they're dreaming of orchids, among other things. So thank you, and I look forward to receiving your flower shots and pet shots next month.
Thanks, Lynn. That was wonderful. You've got such a talent for this, so thank you.
Thank you. I enjoy doing the research. Thank you.
All right. John, I think I made John co-host, so you should be able to take it over.
Yeah, that's right. Let's see.
I actually had an intro slide, but since we're running behind, I'll let you.
Yeah, sorry, I haven't shared before, so I just have to grant permission to the app to go ahead and do this. Okay. All right.
Oh, I don't. Well.
Okay, it's telling me that Zoom will not be able to record the contents of my screen until it's quit, so I'm not sure if it means I have to rejoin.
Oh, should I stop recording or?
Well, I don't know. I might have to quit and rejoin here, so just a second.
Well, they went.
All right, while he's gone, I'll introduce him. How about that?
Good.
Let's see here.
Good.
I'll try it. All right, I did make a slide, so. So John Russell McCallen, going the distance, successfully relocating your orchid collection, graduated from Stanford with a degree in biology, focused on ecology and evolution in 2009. He works at Google, works on design research for music products. I won't read the whole thing, but he's definitely got a passion for slipper orchids and some nicely awarded ones. And as part of the talk, as you know, he's recently moved, but he is still the current secretary of San Francisco Orchid Society and has served on the board since 2019. All right. Are you back?
Yeah, I'm back, and hopefully you'll be able to see my screen in just a second here.
Yep, it works.
Is that working? Okay, great. So I am going to talk a little bit about my experience relocating my collection recently, but hopefully there will be some insights or recommendations that are useful to people who are not planning to move at all, but just to continue refining your growing. And if nothing else, you'll at least get to see some nice orchid pictures for a few minutes here. So as Jeff mentioned, my collection historically has mostly been Phragmipidium, Central South American silver orchids, and Paphiopedilums, tropical Asian silver orchids. This is just a few photos of some of my plants. As you can see, I love the pink to red to white spectrum. And for about 11 years, I lived in beautiful San Francisco, like many of you do, or at least in the Bay Area. It was wonderful. I enjoyed my time there, but recently I decided that I was going to move to Los Angeles and Inglewood specifically. So it was a big move for me. It was sort of short notice, so I tried to do the best I could with preparing for and moving my plants, and I think I learned a lot along the way, and if I were going again, I might do things differently, but hopefully I can give some recommendations that would be helpful to other people. In my move, my goals were basically to keep as many of my orchids as I could. I love them. I wasn't leaving them behind or using this as an excuse to get rid of them. And I wanted to avoid acutely stressing them during the trip, and then minimize chronic stress to the plants once they arrived in their new home. And I wanted to do this all in the most cost-effective way that I could, so I could save my money for more new plants. So how did I go about this? I basically, I tried to understand the conditions I was growing under in San Francisco as best I could, and predict the conditions I would be growing under in Los Angeles. I wanted to minimize the time my plants spent out of their original home and not yet to their new home, so shorten transit as much as I could. I knew that since I was moving to a new house and there'd be a lot of projects getting there, I'd have to create kind of like a soft landing situation for my plants that might not have been ideal. So I just wanted to get things in the best situation I could for the plant's arrival, and then to refine and improve the conditions once they got there. So the first thing I would say before people tune out and think, oh, the moving, this isn't going to have anything to do with me. I have spent a lot of time trying to understand my growing conditions in general, and I found that there's a lot of really cheap tools, hygrometer, thermometer, that you can use and try to monitor and get a sense of things. But nothing gave me better insight into my growing conditions and helping my plants thrive than having this device that's linked here. It's made by a company called Sensor Push, and it's basically a Wi-Fi enabled hygrometer and thermometer monitor. It connects to Wi-Fi, so you can monitor remotely. It logs the data automatically, so you don't have to go through a song and dance with like writing down temperatures when you have time to try to gauge like what your daily or monthly or yearly cycles are. And it's just a really, overall, it's a cool tool. For the gateway and one monitor, it's about $150, but it's like very, very much worth it. Oh yeah, here we go. This is the sort of output that you get from it. It measures constantly the temperature and humidity of where the sensor is. And like I said, you can have multiple sensors. So if you have multiple growing areas, maybe one indoors, one outdoors, or greenhouse sections with different conditions, you can monitor them always. It logs the extreme temperatures, of course, high and low, gives you an average over the time period that you're looking at, which you can adjust, from the hour to the year overall. And it also has this really nice function where you can set alerts. You can say, if you're growing sort of mid-elevation wet growers like I do, I have it send me an alert when it goes below 50% humidity, because that's usually a warning sign, or when the temperature goes below 50 degrees or over 80 degrees. So it's just a really great way to keep track of what's going on and have fewer surprises and unregistered extreme events in your growing situation. So I use that, to kind of like start by really understanding how I was growing in San Francisco. I've been through a number of these different tools put together by a number of different companies, and this is like both the cheapest and the easiest to set up of all the different options. You basically just plug it in and you connect it to your Wi-Fi. The setup could not be easier, in contrast to some of the other things that I've tried to use. So to go back to something I was mentioning earlier about trying to prevent chronic stress, this is what chronic stress looks like when you're out of your growing range, like repeatedly or for extended periods of time. So this is what I was trying to avoid, basically. So to get into a little more detail about my move, all right, so I was moving from Soma in San Francisco to Los Angeles, which I would call kind of a short, long distance move. It's close enough that I decided that I was going to move a lot of my stuff by driving, but it's far enough that you don't want to drive back and forth more than once. It's a huge commitment. I was also moving in June, so driving through the Central Valley where it was like 100+ degrees was like a real consideration for moving plants, especially many of my plants that are not thrilled to be above 80 degrees and dry for any extended period of time. But beyond being 5 hours apart, like what's the difference between LA and SF growing wise? Well, the first place I started to try to understand that, because I am a gardener and grow lots of different other things besides orchids, was the USDA hardiness zones. And according to that, there's no difference. They're both zone 10B. So like no problem, should be fine, right? Well, not really, because the USDA hardiness zones are based on the minimum temperature that you experience in the winter, which for both San Francisco, and Los Angeles is about, the average minimum temperature, I think, is about 49 degrees in the area that I'm going. But of course, as everyone I'm sure remembers from Jeff's recent talk, basically light, temperature, and water all have like interactions that you should consider, and to some degree with nutrients as well when you're thinking about your like growing conditions. And so just measuring something by the minimum temperature is not going to tell you very much about what you need to consider when you're growing. This is why I wanted to both measure my conditions in San Francisco and use other measurements that were available for Los Angeles to understand what I would be getting myself into. So I did also use a tool that Jeff mentioned last time, which is Weatherspark, which tells you a little bit about the environment at any place in the world you can look up throughout the year. So you can see here's the lows, the yearly lows, 48, 49. That's why San Francisco and Los Angeles are both zone 10B. But then if you look somewhere like August, there's significant time where the average high is like over 80 degrees, where we just don't do that in San Francisco. A resource that got me a little bit closer was the sunset zones, which is something that's available for the Western United States that takes into consideration not only the low temperatures, but also high temperatures and weather patterns, including precipitation, and of course, other variables like distance from the coast. So San Francisco, this is sunset zone 17. I was moving to sunset zone 22. That gave me a little bit more information about what the climate would be like that was helpful for me planning. You can check these out for California and the rest of the Western states. You can't look up sunset zones, unfortunately, for outside the Western United States because sunset doesn't make them. Water quality was also something I wanted to consider. I knew from San Francisco that the water is pretty good that comes out of the tap. I used to use reverse osmosis water on my plants because Phragmipediums are kind of finicky, but I stopped because it wasn't necessary. There's low total dissolved solids in San Francisco. So that's sort of a measure of all the things that are dissolved in the water. There's low hardness, which is a measure mostly of calcium and magnesium. And the water tends to have like a relatively high pH, so above neutral. In LA, I looked around and there were a lot of different water quality reports based on where in the water district you are. So it was a little harder for me to predict before I got down here, but in general, I was expecting that there would be more dissolved in the water, and especially more calcium and magnesium. The water would be harder, which can make it a little bit more difficult for the plants to get some of the nutrients they need. And it wasn't clear to me like what the pH would be, if it would be high or low. So when I was coming down here, I did invest in a combo meter. This is a tool that you can use to measure how much is dissolved in your water, the total dissolved solids, the pH, how acidic or basic the water is, and also the temperature of the water, which is important. So these are about $300, but there's much cheaper things you can do. You can get chemical test kits, which are a lot cheaper if you're not going to be doing this regularly or doing some kind of like highly complicated nutrient measurements. Sorry, my birds are being really loud. I'm just going to pause for 1 second and move them out of the room. Okay, so then taking all that into account, I was basically growing, this is a picture of my collection. You can see the beautiful San Francisco skyline. This is where I started. I was growing in a stable, cool environment. This is kind of a northwest facing window, so I was supplementing the light with LEDs, you can see here. And I basically left this balcony cracked open all year round because this is in Soma, so it's right next to the bay. The temperature is very, very stable there. So I had a lot of control over the growing environment. When I was coming to LA, I wasn't sure exactly what I was going to do. This is the general space I was thinking of using. It's a flat, open backyard under the hot Southern California sun. And so without any interventions, I was going to a really hot, dry place with much more intense natural light. In terms of measuring the light, when I was growing indoors, I sort of went by feel. I used a cheap light, a $20 light meter from Amazon to measure light in foot candles, which is kind of like a measurement of the visible intensity. Foot candles or lumens were the two units I used. But those are a little bit old-fashioned measurements. If you go by the AOS grow sheets, they do often measure using foot candles, but because that's just a measurement of the intensity of light, it doesn't tell you that much about what the plant actually needs, because plants do not use the full visible spectrum of light to grow. They use primarily light that falls into the blue and the red range, and that's why leaves are green. They're essentially reflecting back green light. So there's more sophisticated measurements you can do, and especially if you're in an intense light environment, it might be the right option to invest in a meter that measures something called the photosynthetic photon flux density, which is like a measurement of how many photons, little particles of light essentially, are hitting per unit area. And those photons are photons that the plants can use for photosynthesis. So I won't get too much more into that. It's a little bit of a technical thing. If you have the money and you really want to refine your growing and understanding your environment, a meter that can do this for you starts at about $400. So it's very like optional. You can work off of the $20 meter and do okay. That's this one. So as I was thinking about like planning for where I was going, I kind of like tickled myself with a little bit of a dad joke, as I sometimes do. I was like, I was thinking, how is an orchid collection like a gas? Well, it expands to fill its container. So that's important for planning ahead. You don't want to get yourself in trouble by not planning for room to expand. So I initially thought, okay, we'll do an 8x10 greenhouse, because that will help me control a little bit more of the environment than if I try to keep my delicate mid to high elevation plants outdoors. But I thought at the last minute, I thought, well, you know, we better go 10x12 and get a higher ceiling on there, because I know I'm going to be sad if I fill up my greenhouse with plants that I already have. And don't leave any room to expand. So I went with a 10x12 kit greenhouse. I was being a little bit too cheap on this. It was from Harbor Freight. I got it on special. It was like $600, you know, no delivery. You pick it up yourself, everything like that. If I were going to do this again, I would spend a little bit more on the greenhouse, because you're going to bother to build something like this, which is a bit of work. You want to make sure you're getting something that's going to last, and you want something that's like engineered to decent tolerances. You can see on this photo on the right, there's a little bit of a bend in this bar because it has one of the sides. They decided to have two sliding doors with no support post in the middle. I discovered this after I opened it up and got the manual, and so it's a little, that's something that I wouldn't recommend. Don't get the discount kit. If you're going to get a kit and build it yourself, make sure you're spending enough money to get the really solid one, because it's a lot of work to put even the cheap ones together. So then in terms of like when it came time to pack up, this is how I pack. It's pretty inefficient and it's a bit expensive. Like I was going and buying all these boxes and doing my best to like pack stuff carefully and delicately. But when it comes to orchids, like for packing the orchids, I'm also inefficient because I don't want to smush anything. I want to do everything really delicately, and I just want to baby everything. So when I was packing my orchids, I'd get like a few in a big box like this. This is what it looks like when a professional packs. Not only do they do this all the time, so they're much better at packing orchids than I am. They also have a bunch of supplies like the cotton fluff and the tape and boxes of different sizes. And they also get cheaper shipping rates than you if you like pack your stuff and take the box into the post office. So what I ended up doing was kind of deciding, all right, I'll pack up my precious ones that I can't possibly let anybody put their hands on but me, and everything else, I'll cut a deal with somebody who does this for a living so they can ship me, they can pack up and ship all my things, and I won't have to, you know, take forever and ha and baby everything, and they've got all the tools and materials and that they can use, and I'll give them some of my plants to keep, and that'll be our trade. So that's what I did, and it worked out pretty well, although I will say one thing I didn't do is get insurance on all the boxes, and boy, did I wish that I had, because you can see, this happened to, luckily, only one of the boxes that I sent, but you can see that it was shipped on July 7th, and it arrived at my house on August 10th, so that's over a month to get from San Francisco to Los Angeles in the middle of summer. I could have walked from San Francisco to Los Angeles at that time, and needless to say, these kind of, my water-loving, high elevation plants were very crispy and brown in this box. So that wasn't ideal. And for that reason, I do recommend your most precious things, if you can find a way to carry them with you, do it. Anything else, ship it, but get insurance. In terms of the soft landing, this is like the starter pack kit that I went with and that I recommend. You can buy these great sturdy powder coated racks on Amazon. You can get shade cloth on Amazon, which is super important in terms of controlling the light and heat that your plants are experiencing. Grow trays just to carry and keep everything stable. And this item I love. This is basically a misting system that plugs directly into a hose bib. So you can just create a beautiful light mist like they do in the fresh produce aisle in the grocery store whenever you want by turning on the hose. You can string this up around in your temporary area or even in your permanent grow space. But it's super cheap. It's like $30 for 40 feet of this or something like that. And like I said, connects right into a standard hose end that you can find on Amazon. I did that, and then I did something to add a little bit of value too. I had basically a smart hose valve that I put on the hose, then connected that misting system to the other side of it. This has a little hub that you just plug into the wall and connect to your 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi, and then you can do all kinds of great stuff like set up an automated misting program. When you know that it gets hottest from 12 to 2:30, you can have the misting go off for 3 minutes every hour, or adjust it to whatever other schedule you optimize based on the conditions that you're in. I use this for my temporary landing space for my orchids, and I use it in my greenhouse now. It's like about $55, and it is fantastic. It's a great way to do automated watering when you're on vacation, because again, you control this through an app on your phone. You can turn it on and off whenever you want, or set an automated program so you don't even have to think about it. You don't have to interact with it on your phone. You do need to have 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi connection, which I think most people probably have. Some people have 5 gigahertz because it's like faster, but it doesn't connect over the same distance. So you got to make sure that your Wi-Fi is pretty close to your growing area. You might also need a different manufacturer. Most things like this use 2.4 because it works better over distance. The last thing is once I got my greenhouse up, then I could learn more about the environment that was around it and continue like using these tools to measure and figure out like, oh, actually I'm getting a big temperature spike at 3 p.m. when the sun goes down past the outbuilding here, and then I'm getting direct afternoon sun into the greenhouse. So one of the things that I did was understanding that a little bit better and like the degree to which it really was causing a huge temperature spike and humidity drop. I decided to build a little screen to grow some vines and create some afternoon shade in there. And this grew in about a month and a half or so. So I had to like bear with the temperature spikes, humidity drops for that time, but then it did turn out to be much nicer to look at than this ugly greenhouse eventually. So what does it look like now? You saw my growing under lights in San Francisco. It looks really different. I don't have any plants in the house except for when they're in bloom now, which, you know, is better in terms of the humidity of the interior of the house and using it for other things, and also the presence of animals, which don't always treat my plants in the way that I would treat them. I'm definitely still working out the kinks. You know, I rely heavily on the telemetry and measuring and understanding the trends and the conditions in the greenhouse, because I'm not standing in there all the time. But the sensor push tool, I couldn't recommend anything more to understand, again, whether you're going in a greenhouse or even in your house or outside, or if you have multiple growing areas. And you know, like I said, conditions weren't going to be ideal as soon as I got here, but I have tried to continuously optimize, and things are going okay. These are all plants that have bloomed since I, you know, arrived here a few months ago, and many of these are first blooms, and I'm looking forward to many more in my space and making it better as time goes on for my plants. So I know that was a bit of a rambling, all over the place talk, but the key points that I would say is whether you're moving or not, it's great to find out conditions and information about where you're growing or where you're going to be growing from online. There's an incredible amount of tools and data out there, from water quality to temperature to precipitation patterns. And really understanding your place or where you're going to be is sort of the foundation. Then invest in the tools to take meaningful measurements and really refine your own growing area. There's, for pretty much everything, there's a cheap option and there's an expensive option. Figure out what your thresholds are and what the value you're going to get is there. I will say the expensive options are often more difficult to learn about and understand, but then once you're using them, they're easier to collect and log data and easier to make good decisions with. So once you understand the conditions of where you are, where you're going, then deciding what kind of intervention you want to do. This goes back to Jeff's talks. Like, if you're just growing somewhere that's super hot and bright and dry, maybe these terrestrial orchids that require a lot of pure water and low temperatures are not something that you want to bother with. Maybe there are other orchid options that better fit your climate. If you're moving, I'd say definitely pick favorites. Choose your precious ones and carry them with you if you can. And then for everything else, especially if you have a larger collection, so anything, I would say anything over like 50 or 100 plants starts to be a lot to deal with. Like, get a professional to help you, because they can send things for cheaper and they're probably better at packing stuff than you are. Whether you're moving or not, automation has never been cheaper or easier. So this is like the Wi-Fi controlled sprinkler systems. If you're growing under lights, there's a whole set of tools for automating lights that are really amazing. And then when you're thinking about moving, or even if you're thinking about, you know, the seasons where you are, say you move your collection outdoors through the summer, just like manage the extremes in temperature and light and water to avoid acute stresses. Those would be like sunburns or freezes or like things like that. And then manage the average extremes. So like, what is the average high temperature and the average low temperature that you're getting naturally versus like, what is the lowest possible temperature you get, lowest or the highest possible temperature, to minimize the chronic stress that is the cause of plants sort of like limping along and not performing as they could, versus the acute stress is the sunburn or, you know, the freeze that's going to kill the plant right at the moment. This presentation, I think probably Jeff, we can share this in the member area of our site or something. I just linked to a few things in here that I talked about. The devices are all linked to on their page. The technical stuff about light, I think, is something that's like, especially if you're if you have some time on your hands or you're a little geeky about these things, it's something that I found really interesting, is learning about how professional horticultural growers are thinking about light and how they manage it, and the tools to understand that is really useful, because light, in my opinion, is sort of the foundation of building a good growing space. The amount and quality of the light you have is closely tied to the temperature, and that determines how and when you're going to water, and how much and when you're watering is also closely related to the nutrient regime that you provide. So if you're going to pick one thing to understand, I would start with light. Just to prove that I don't only grow slipper orchids, I do actually have a number of Cattleya hybrids. I think this is Pumila biowalkeriana and Laelia species that I used to grow outdoors in San Francisco. And many of them, I think, are a little bit easier to manage into happiness in Southern California, but I'm going to be working on my continuous improvement, and I'll give you an update in a year when I've been through all the seasons here. And maybe we'll see I have a significant change in composition of the collection. So thank you, everyone. I know it's late, tried to be quick, but hopefully you got something out of that, if only just some pictures of nice plants.
Thanks, John. Any questions?
John, I have something.
Yeah.
We've got 2 of those Harbor Freight greenhouses in our community garden. We've had them for about 14 years now.
They're still standing?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, there's 3 things to watch out for, or 4 if you really want to push it. First off, that sag over the door.
Mm-hmm.
We ended up putting a bar across that to stiffen it, because one of the greenhouses, it literally stress cracked right through the middle of that bar.
Yeah, I see that coming in my future if I don't do anything about it.
So basically, you get a bigger bar. We use steel, which wasn't necessarily the best idea, with aluminum because it corrodes really fast. But it does stiffen that up a lot. The other one is the vent openers die after about a year.
Yeah, I didn't go into it, but I replaced those with some different with a thermal wax opener, and my expectation is, those automatically, you can twist them to kind of refine wet temperature. My expectation is that's going to be a consumable piece, because that overhead midday LA sun, the vent opener itself is going way over 100.
Well, and the third thing relates to your LA sun. The 6 mil double wall polycarbonate that they have is not UV stabilized.
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
Actually, we did some research, and they said, yeah, we don't use the UV stabilize it because it's cheaper that way. Well, that means those panels are going to get brittle.
Mm-hmm.
So what we did is we went and got some 8 mil double wall polycarbonate like you put on a normal greenhouse, and the cutting directions, the sizes are in the construction manual.
So you just had a custom cut to replace.
Yeah, we just had them cut, and we replaced all the roof panels, and those got us to at least 10 years. Then all the side panels blew out.
I'm lucky in that I have a structure on either side, so it's not getting a lot of the sun coming directly at the sides, and there's not a ton of intense air movement on the side. So I think those will be okay, but I like that 8 mil stabilized idea.
Well, we also ordered 2 extra packs of the spring clips, and doubled up on those spring clips all the way down on all the panels.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, you can still use the same spring clips for the 8 mil, but you double up on the clips because it's less stress points all the way down those panels.
Yeah. Great.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, how are you cooling that?
Yeah, well, I have been through a number of different tools. When I first got out here, I had only the hose wand when I was going in there 5 times a day or whatever, spraying the floor, spraying everything. Then I set up I got around to setting up the spray system. So right now I have that set to go on, I think 10 times per day for 1 minute each. And the spray system is rigged up around the top of the greenhouse. When it's on for a minute, spraying the water, the fine mist, it brings the temperature down pretty immediately, 5-10 degrees in there, just because of the water is at about 69 degrees when it comes out, and then the evaporative cooling that goes on as it is there. We're past the hottest part of the year now, so the cooling is less of a difficulty, but especially for a lot of my Phragmiphidiums, that was the heat and dryness was like the biggest challenge for me. I bought a portable evaporative cooler, which you can get for about $150. But I haven't needed to set it up yet because now it's cooled down to an acceptable like temperature range. There's a whole, as far as evaporative cooling of greenhouses, getting the traditional setup can be a really big investment with the wall, with the pad and everything like that. One that's hard to like rationalize for a 10 by 12 greenhouse, in my opinion, because it's like a lot of those, it's like yeah.
I have
wet wall. Just put in a normal swamp cooler. They should be available all over Southern California.
That's basically what I ended up going.
I want to caution you, to get that to work properly, you need to look at the cubic feet a minute on the swamp cooler, and it should change the air in your greenhouse 1.5 times a minute. So size it accordingly, because that little portable one you got probably is not big enough to accomplish that.
Yeah.
I have swamp coolers in both of my greenhouses down here, and they really do a good job, and you can buy them at Home Depot. Yep. They're the same kind of thing that they put on the top of a mobile home in a mobile home park, and you just hook it up to water. But it sounds like you've got it handled. Does your timers do that misting for you, or do you have to attend to it?
I have it set up automatically. So I went into the app and I programmed it for kind of the heat pattern of the day, where it basically goes on for 1 minute at intervals that I've selected throughout the day. Because at first I was like, oh, I don't know how much water I need to use. I mean, I could do it for more time than that, but then you end up it's sort of a balance too of like how much water are you ending up like collecting in crowns of plants and things like that, because it is like an overhead system.
So you're having that spray down you're having it go down the benches and not down the center of the greenhouse?
It's the misting system is set up around the perimeter with the nozzles facing in towards the interior. So the mist basically blows a cloud into the middle of the greenhouse.
John?
Okay. All right, sounds good. Sounds like you're doing a good job.
If you want to contact me later, I'm on my 5th set of greenhouses.
Awesome.
I know everything that you can do wrong, so I can help you with the things not to do.
I would love that. I will definitely reach out to you, because it'd be great to shortcut some more mistakes here.
Okay. Have you put in a row system yet?
You know, that was one thing that I thought I was gonna do right away, and I haven't gotten around to it. I can see, you know, like there's a dramatic difference in the water here. It comes out of the hose at like 250 to 280 parts per million.
That's on a good day.
Yeah. Whereas in San Francisco, I was often out of the tap, I was getting like 50 parts per million. And that was fine for the Phragmiphidiums there. This is one of those things I think is like, if I don't do something about it, it's going to contribute to a little bit to the chronic stress stuff. So I haven't done that yet. I think that's definitely something that's on the list. The variable I'm trying to figure out there is sizing and setting up the system in such a way that I'm like I don't end up with like egregious wastewater situation, and that I'm also generating enough water to use in the way that I want to, and everything like that. So I think there's some plumbing work basically that's going to have to go in on the front end to make the RO like fit into what I want to do there, and that's part of what has why I haven't done it yet.
What I do is the effluent goes into a couple of 55-gallon drums in a shallow well pump, moves the water, and it waters the front lawn. My front lawn has never been happier, and the water is going to, isn't going down the drain.
Yeah, that is a great approach. I think that's something I'm going to have to design a copy of.
Well, what is your incoming water pressure?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm not quite sure, but it feels high, but I'm not sure.
The higher it is, the more efficient your RO system will be.
Mm-hmm.
You can just get a little booster pump, which is what I did.
That's what I did. I just got one from a motorhome. Works fine.
Ah, nice. Okay. Yeah.
Hey, John, I'm just going to suggest that as you look at, behind Bill there, and you see all those beautiful Australian dendrobiums having come from San Diego, a lot of the Mexican lilias and things like that. I predict, and it'd be really interesting to hear how things evolve for you, but there's definitely some things that will be much, much easier to grow in Southern California that would be difficult to grow up here, and vice versa. So you might be able to engineer some good trades for plants and things like that, for shifting your collection around a little bit. If you have things where you think you'd like to find new homes for some of those plants and some of the divisions you have, and take on other things that might actually do really well down there. Because that's, all these different things that you're talking about, that's something that, having moved from San Diego a year ago, there's a lot of things that I tried to grow down there that I struggled with, and things that grew really well down there. And they're different between the two locations.
Yeah. Mexican lilias.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Bill, I'm sure Bill can totally hook you up with all the different things that he's got in his collection.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things I love about this society, and also especially now that more people are participating who aren't beyond just who can come to in-person meetings. It's really great to hear that expertise and experience from other areas too. I love it.
I'm sure moving into my backyard.
Yeah, and I'd certainly offer you, I had a full RO system, had that set up, all the things that I learned from sort of the things that worked and things that didn't in San Diego, they'll be really germane to you. Happy to share that separately, offline from this.
Yeah, I'll definitely reach out to you because, like I said, I've been dragging my feet on that one, and some pointers would be good. So.
All right.
I'll certainly steer you away from the Harbor Freight version of the RO system. That'll just break your heart as well.
Yeah. Not saving any money in the long run.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Thanks, everyone. That was a great discussion. Lots of relevant pearls and more to come. There was one more thing before we break out and do the raffle. I wanted to point out, I forwarded an email that several people responded to about virus test kits availability. I wanted to give you a quick update and let you know what's going on. So basically, the people that were doing that already placed their order, and it was all taken. So for the people that emailed me or Mark Koo, he forwarded those to me. And I did a little research, and basically we need to come up with an order that starts to approximate buying 2,000 tests to sort of make it worth doing a purchase. I've got about 2 people that want about 200 or 300 tests worth. So what I'm planning to do is just to kind of let this ride a little bit until I hear from more people. And once we get enough, we can talk about how to proceed, whether the society does it or we collect money first. But basically, you can get it. Let me see if I can share this real quick. And I know it's getting late, so I don't want to keep people too long. Let's see if I can find it. Basically, I connected with the person that they bought the kits from, and got the pricing. And there's a point where there's a big price drop, and it's right around buying 2,000 tests. And that gets you to where it would cost roughly $3 per test strip, which does 2 viruses per strip. So, and I talked to Ken Jacobson. Ken and Amy use a different one. but there it costs like twice as much because you actually have to like buy 2 different strips and cut them. And so long story short, if you're interested, this is not, the order's not gone in. It's not going to go in anytime real soon, but maybe over the next few months, we can continue to collect people with an interest. If you send me an email with, yes, I'm interested, I might want 25 or 50 or 100 or 10 or whatever it is, let me know. And I'm keeping a tally, and then we'll sort out how to do it.
So Jeff, just to let you know, is that there are kits that come in 50 tests per kit. So you want to make sure, you don't want people to be breaking up your kits, because then you're going to have to sit there and separate out the strips. It's more work than what it's worth. If you have somebody who wants to buy 25 and somebody wants to buy 25, that's great. But it's really more difficult to sit there and try to separate it out if people just want 10. And then, the cost, then you have to figure out the cost and everything else. So, yeah, because the Gold Coast we bought all ours already, and they're all gone, like you said.
So anyway, it's a future topic. It's good, people have been saying it's good behavior. A lot of people are testing their collections. And I actually have not started testing mine, but I'm thinking about it. So maybe that's a future topic. We're running late here. So any other announcements or things that people want to say before we move to the raffle? All right. And by the way, we have extra raffle things. I'm hoping that everyone actually will be able to get something next month. Since in lieu of the holiday party, I tried to actually get more than 20 things to give, or 10 $20 gift certificates to give away. And we've gotten a lot of contributions and things we've added. So please plan to attend the December 1st meeting, and hope to surprise you with more giveaways. So, first name tonight is Jeff Harris, not me. I'm the other Jeff. This is the real Jeff Harris right there. Okay. Lynne Murrell. Okay, Joe's drawing these. This is not me pulling these out here. Heidi Arno. Jen Poulakis. Renate Johnson. Did I say that right? I don't know if I said. Roberta Fox. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 4 more. Okay, Jen already won.
Jen Poulakis.
Yeah.
Isn't that twice?
Yeah. Well, because she did it. Florence. Jan Anderson.
Is that 9?
Let's see, that's so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2 more. 2 more. Faye Rubino. And Kevin Fleenor. All right. So thanks everyone. We have the winners for tonight. I'll follow up with everyone, and email me if you have any questions, and we'll see you December 1st. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, good night, all.
All right.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, so yeah, happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Happy Thanksgiving to
Thanksgiving in
everybody.
advance to you all.
Take care.
All
Happy
right.
election night.
Yeah, let's keep our fingers crossed.
Yeah, happy election night.
It's Eric. All right. Take care, everyone.
Who is Corey Manjowski?